If everybody take their seats, we're going to start a little early because apparently Nicole wants to get a lot of stuff done today. I don't know why that is, but she does. So she's corralling everybody up. So we come to the table, we'll get started.
You want to turn it off? It'll go.
Nicole, are you still networking or?
Yeah, she's not working. So welcome everybody again to another day. I'll just pass it over to Commissioner Grimberg and Mayor Mahoney here and to get us started.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for day 2, and what an exciting day yesterday, and the collaboration and the discussion, and a few points throughout the morning. Reference was made, this is probably a first in the nation for various agencies coming together to have this kind of collaboration with developers and continuation of moving our community forward. You know, last night at dinner, we had some discussion around some of the sites that you're going to see today. And, you know, I was thinking about the historic value of our Fargo-Moorhead region, and particularly the Mid-America Steel site that you'll see. And you look at the history of that and look to the future as far as one of Fargo's taglines being Gateway to the West. When we broke ground on this facility for new City Hall, you know, Gateway to the Future was used as a definition of the symbolism of Fargo's growth, the commitment of the City of Fargo with its investment, with partnership with realtors and developers. And so when you have a chance to view these sites today, think about what might have been. I know Patrick has some of the history from a resident in the area, but now with EPA. But it's really about the future and the opportunities through public-private partnerships. And so just excited again to have this opportunity, and thank you for your commitment, and good things are going to come. And Mayor?
I'm excited to be here today because I heard a lot of great things last evening and ways to collaborate and build and do things. Our community has always had the difficulty of the high-rise and what to do about it. And we always would hear, well, HUD or EPA or something's holding us up. So it's really nice to have our partners in the room to try to discuss what's the best way to attack this problem. And for our community, we feel like Tony says, this is kind of a gateway to the city of Fargo. As you come into our city, this is what you see. But what a great project you could do to demonstrate the ability for people, private investors, as well as public, as well as the city, as well as federal, to work together to get to a solution. And I think Ben Carson, when he's talked about that, it says always remember the people that are behind that decision and what happens with those people. And I think we had a great discussion about how we're going to handle the people in the high-rise and how to get people to another location and do the things they would love to be in a home. And what I see oftentimes is we get attached to our home or where we live, and it's oftentimes hard to do new things and future things. So we're excited today. Nicole tells me we're going to come to some solutions today and have some discussions as well. Then we'll go see the sites as well. So good morning. Welcome, everybody, and looking forward to a great morning. Thank you.
Do you want to go around the room and introduce yourselves and maybe give us a little bit more on what brings you to Fargo?
I'll start out. We'll finish off the city team here. My name is Bruce Grubb, and I'm the city administrator for the city of Fargo. Kind of honored to sit here today. Yesterday I had one of these with my name on it, but now I'm filling in for Commissioner Strand. So thanks for having me.
I think Ty will get that fixed right now.
Jim Gilmore with the city. Jim Gilmore with the City of Fargo, working on these downtown redevelopment projects.
Hi, good morning. I'm Evelyn Lim. I'm the regional administrator for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in Region 8. I'm here today to discuss, our office is in Denver, so I'm here in Fargo to discuss the opportunities that lay in the Laskowitz high-rise.
Good morning. My name is Mark Fellmeyer. I am the multifamily production branch chief out of the Denver Satellite Office of the West Region. And I am here to see if the FHA platform can add any type of value for this endeavor that you're undertaking. And Mr. Mansky can be very convincing, is another reason why.
Good morning. I'm Velma Navarro. I am the Regional Director of the Office of Public Housing for Regions 7 and 8, based out of Denver. And I'm here to explore the possibilities with the high-rise and our public housing residents to ensure that they continue to receive or be in safe, decent housing, working with the Housing Authority. So we're really excited about this endeavor.
Good morning, I'm Christine Smith-Dryer, and I'm also with the Office of Public Housing in Denver, and I've had the pleasure of working with the Fargo Housing Authority on their application for the high-rise and effort to make it a smooth transition for all involved.
Good morning, my name is Thomas Jefferson, Commissioner with the Fargo Housing Authority, and I'm just happy to see that this is happening, that the vision we had 35 years ago to see what this city could be like. And I'm just impressed that so many people are coming together to make it happen. And I think it will happen. So excitement. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bryce Johnson. I'm a commissioner for the Fargo Housing Authority, and I am also with the Home Builders Association as their CEO.
My name is Steve Gertz. I'm with the part of the Epic Companies team, and currently working on the redevelopment of the Gateway Mall site.
Good morning. I'm Todd Burning. I'm president of Epic Companies. We own the land next to the high-rise, and we definitely would like to be part of the private part of the public-private partnership, and see what we can create there as a community. So I think that's really important, and that's why we're here today.
Good morning, I'm Brian Berg with Zerberg Architects, and on the team with Epic Companies to envision what the redevelopment of the Gateway property and potentially the surrounding area could look like. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Good morning, I'm Al Hout with the Small Business Administration located here in Fargo, and I'm here to be an advocate for and provide support to the area small businesses.
Good morning, I'm Patrick Davis with the EPA, and the EPA tool that is going to be helpful to this conversation is our Brownfields program.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Pike. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of Fargo Housing. The truth is I'm here because Joel Mansky had a great idea. And that idea was to bring all of you brilliant people together, and in yesterday's event and today's, to explore opportunities that began 17 years ago in discussions upon the realization that the Fargo high-rise needed attention, because otherwise the lack of attention would mean it would impact the lives of the people who live there. My board, I appreciate their representation here very deeply, and everyone else, because the opportunity that this presents is to bring a public-private partnership together in some form to figure out what the future property would look like with regards to the 2 acres that our organization is focused on, to both enhance the opportunities, as Velma stated so elegantly, for those who currently live there, and then to enhance the affordability opportunities for that property in its future and moving forward to affect affordability for the entire city. So thanks very much to all of you, and to Joel and Nicole for pulling it all together.
Tim Gleason with Enclave Development Manager, just here to provide input from the private sector development side. So, thanks. Go ahead,
Austin Morris, Enclave Development.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Madler, the CEO, and I'm fortunate enough to lead a mission-driven, nonprofit affordable housing developer that in the region has developed over 1,200 homes. And currently, we're working on closing the financing that would bring 499 homes to the community of Fargo. Thank you.
Larry Nygaard from Roars Development. Interesting factoid, my father was on the Fargo Housing Authority back when this project was conceived back in 1970, so go back a long way. So happy to be here today.
And good morning, I'm Randy Thorson. I'm a Fargo business owner. I was brought here as a baby from Moorhead to Fargo, and I never left. And so I've been doing business in Fargo since I was 24 years old, and As they all know, I have properties in downtown Fargo as well as around the city, so I'm glad to be here today. Thanks.
So I bet you were born at St. Ansgar
Yeah,
Hospital.
exactly. Brought me home right away. So.
Nicole?
Yeah, I think this, unlike yesterday, we also wanted to take an opportunity to have the audience members introduce themselves, and Ty's got a microphone here, because this is very much a community conversation. I think folks were a little shy yesterday in dialoguing from the audience, and while we don't have as much time for dialogue today, because we're going to do a bus tour in a little while, but we do want to have the opportunity to for folks to maybe pass the mic around and introduce themselves. And as you know, last week or yesterday, we had a lot of folks, developers sitting in the audience, and so from the developers that are here today, thank you very much. And so they're a surprise add-on to the, so they reluctantly came to the table a little bit, but we're glad to have them. Maybe do you want to just start with Ty? With do you want to, sir? Do you want to introduce yourself? Yeah.
My name's Kyle Fender. I'm an attorney and accountant here in Fargo. Work with the Epic companies quite a bit, and just here to hear what's going on.
Kent Busick from Busick Olson Associates. I'm a CPA, and I've worked a lot on the investment side, discussing with potential investors that want to invest in opportunity zones, not only in Fargo, but Bismarck, Minot, and Grand Forks. And it was brought up yesterday, are people interested in this? And the answer is yes, because it's a new opportunity for a lot of people that are making money in the stock market or with their businesses, that they can keep it local. And that's what's happening with these projects.
I'm Ryan Statzler. I'm a Fargo resident, but I'm also a business reporter at the Forum. So I'm here to put you in the paper.
Matt Torgerson. I work for GLG Architects.
Laura Larson. I'm with the Downtown Community Partnership, a 501c6 nonprofit. We work to advocate and promote for downtown Fargo. I don't know what I did.
Caitlin Madsen with the Downtown Community Partnership, and I'm the event coordinator.
Michael Kelsch, I'm the Southeast Regional Representative for Senator Kevin Kramer's office.
Pam Mull, I am the office manager and caseworker for Congressman Kelly Armstrong's office.
I'm Ian McKay. I'm a student at Oak Grove Lutheran.
Good morning. My name is Jill Elliott. I work as Deputy Director of the Fargo Housing Authority. I started with the Housing Authority 42 years ago when the high-rise was a brand new building and a great opportunity for people to move into the beautiful city of Fargo, into a high-rise overlooking the river, you know, the best spot in Fargo. Our biggest problems then were, what did we serve with bridge? I'm not kidding. That was, do we serve date bars or lemon bars? So I'm here to follow it through to solve, you know, where it's become now. But it was a tremendous asset, and we appreciate you all wrapping your arms around it and taking care of it properly. Thank you.
Did you bring the date bars?
Good morning, Mike Zibney with Kilbourne Group.
Good morning. I'm Leah Fagerland with Zerberg Architects.
I am Mackenzie St. Marie with Epic Companies.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Haas. I'm the Senior Vice President of Epic Companies, born and raised in Fargo, so I'm very excited to be here today and kind of see what we can all bring together. Thanks.
And I guess I'll just, we have Dave Leaker with the Fargo Park District, and Matt Shepard with Fargo Housing Authority, and then Joel Mansky, of course, and myself, and Mike Redlinger, Assistant City Administrator, Tia, and Mark from the Planning Department. So just kind of a quick roundup with the staff here that are hiding out in the corner over here. But yeah, so with that, just a quick overview of the day. We will spend a little bit of time here talking about the Mid-America Steel site and the high-rise block. To give a little context, we have Matthew, Todd, and Jim to talk about the priorities and status and what we know of these sites. And we also will have at 10:30, hoping to get on a bus that will be outside the front. And for those that want to go to the, and everybody here, there's room enough for all of us on the bus, so everybody can come. And we will take the bus to the Mid-America Steel site. We probably won't get off because it's also very cold. But, and we're a little tight on time so that we can get to the high-rise site and see that site. We will get off the bus there. And then at those that don't want to stay for lunch, you can get back on the bus and they'll bring you back to City Hall. And then those that want to stay for lunch can stay for lunch at the Frying Pan, and then the bus will come back and bring us back to that. So I think some of you might have alternative rides from the Frying Pan site, but otherwise, if you want to get back here, we'll have the bus system going as well. So with that, I guess I just wanted to reintroduce Jim and to maybe give a little context on the 3 sites on what we know, and then Jim, either if you want to come up here, or I can run slides from here. Or,
why don't you just run the slides from there, and I'll just stay here.
Okay. And then we have a little recap from yesterday, so I'll just kind of get through this. And then maybe just a quick highlight. So our downtown and focus plan, just to explain these 2 diagrams a little bit more, because it came up at dinner last night when I was talking to Mr. Davis with the EPA. The Downtown and Focus Plan did do an extensive amount of engagement and outreach as part of the opportunities in Fargo, what we look at possibilities. And so the site off to the left is the Mid-America Steel site, and just imagining what could be built there. Obviously, there's a lot of land area that's in the floodplain and floodway, and so how can we use that with stormwater, et cetera. And then on the slide to the right is just imagining what could be at the high-rise Gateway Plaza site. Here's obviously the high-rise, and then development on this corner. And Jim will explain a little bit more between the 2 sites and what we have access to.
This is the Mid-America Steel site. It's located along the river. The NP Avenue on the north, Main Avenue on the south, and a transcontinental railroad line that severs the site. The site was acquired by the city of Fargo as part of our efforts to have better flood protection in town. We didn't need this particular site right away, but we needed their parking lot. And their parking lot was to the north. And because steel workers aren't the type of people that can work at home, if you take away their parking, you pretty much shut down the steel operation. And so we ended up buying the entire operation. This is located north along the river, the block with the high rise, and the Gateway Mall, and a remnant piece of property that the city has is located south, kind of on the opposite side of that roundabout. So do we have next slide of the...
Jim, before you go on, can you tell us where City Hall is on that map, where we're sitting?
Right, kind of over here. So the bridge, the First Avenue North and Second Street Bridge, and City Hall is right where the M would be.
Okay, thank you.
As this flood protection plan went in, it really changes the whole riverfront development potential. There were other properties we acquired. If you look at it kind of from the north side of the downtown, there's a former school district warehouse that could be redeveloped. Kilbourne has a piece of property. There's condos going in just north of us. There's City Hall here. The block to the south of us is sold, or is for sale. And so there's going to be a lot of change along the river here over the next several decades. Do we have a slide of the 3 parcels?
Yeah, and then maybe just to add to that, here's the Mid-America Steel site, kind of the large area next to the river, and then City Hall right here, and then the high-rise site right here. So they kind of touch each other along the edge of the riverfront.
So this is the the block, this was like an urban renewal site, back in the late 1960s, early 70s. There are actually 5 different property owners on this block, and 3 of them are, in the midst of major, redevelopment. The open area you see there on the east was the site of a Park East apartment, a property actually Roars Development owned that at the time it was taken down. There's a dike, I don't know, Nicole, you can kind of point to where the city acquired that so we could put a dike there. North of that dike, or it's kind of on the dry side of that dike, is about a 1-acre site, 54,000 square feet. And so there's a lot of interest in redeveloping, that site. It's a little limited in that the only access to the site is from Main Avenue. It's real close to the driveway, to the Gateway Mall. There's a median, so it would be a right turn in, right turn out only. And so trying to develop that site in conjunction with the rest of the block would, whether it's by one of the same developers or at least in coordination with another development group, is, I think, can lead to better project. Immediately, do we have another site on each of the sites? Or?
No, this is
Okay.
each of the individual property owners will talk about their site.
And so to the west of that, we'll talk, different property owners. So the Gateway Mall site is owned by Epic Development. You can see the high rise to the south. The 2 sites that really aren't part of any redevelopment right now, there's a professional building on the west side and a service station on the northwest corner. So, but whatever we do, we should think about, if that service station ever wants to redevelop, how could that best be done? What I'd like to probably do now, though, is to introduce Matt Pike to talk about the high-rise site and how what do you see the future of this site being, and any other things you'd like to add.
Thanks, Jim. Nicole, can we just leave that slide up
Yeah.
there? It's probably the best slide to demonstrate, sort of just to give a picture. Okay, so oftentimes less is more, right? And we could keep this really boring, and that's just not my style. So let me try and make it exciting. That building has 247. It's the big shadow in the center of that picture. It casts a big shadow. It has a remarkable history. Jill just spoke to that, and I appreciate her being here today. I appreciate Matt Shepard being here as well from my staff. It casts a big shadow because it has, for 50 years, taken care of people who were desperately in need of having, as Velma stated, a safe quality of life and a place to live with dignity. About 20 years ago, my predecessor identified, when he was in his early days in this position, that it needed attention. Federal dollars were what they were in terms of the capital improvements, and I'm going to say this because my friends from HUD are in the room, and I would say this with them here and otherwise, and I've said it before. The needs of that building are not about deferred maintenance. They're not about the lack of our federal partners in dealing with costs over the decades that were improvements that could have and should have been made. That's not what went wrong in this building. What went wrong in this building is that it was built to such a high quality at the time following the Housing Act of 1968 and the federal investment that was involved following that, and it was significant investment. It was built in a way, in a style, that was meant to take care of the greatest number of people in the smallest available space and resources, and it was built at the time on a model that was seen as best suited to meet their needs. Structurally, it was built in the following way, though. It was built in stacked formed concrete construction. It's got a remarkable engineering behind that structure that makes it remarkably strong. Those poured concrete slabs were then built onto 2 layers of steel, an outer layer and an inner layer core that also holds its elevators. And it was built with cast iron waste and freshwater piping that was then built well into the walls. And then it was sprayed with fire retardant materials, which, as we know, in the 60s is now considered a hazardous substance. So let's focus on the people. So for decades, seniors lived in that building with great success. And then the rules changed in terms of the population that we needed to focus on, that housing authorities nationwide needed to focus on based upon various court cases and rule changes that came down. And we responded to that. Fargo Housing, as did all the other housing authorities around the country, responded to that by beginning to bring in a more mixed community. The result of that was that the mixed community meant that there were greater needs, that the focus needs of the seniors could not be specifically addressed within that building, and instead the needs of a greater and larger, more diverse community could be addressed with varying degrees of success. The needs of the building, however, that issue aside, are focused upon those cast iron pipes. It was realized about 20 years ago that they were deteriorating, as all cast iron pipes do, and they were nearly unreachable in terms of making the improvements necessary. So the Fargo Housing Authority and their maintenance crew and predecessors in various positions, with the support of the board, began addressing it in a piecemeal fashion, because the most important thing was to continue to take care of the people. And it continues to be the most important thing. The development perspective of my predecessor was overarchingly detailed in terms of him looking, and sometimes even in partnership with Dan, who's sitting with me here today, was, I'm sure, detailed, and they looked at it from a perspective of a development opportunity. I won't tell the whole story, but I will tell you that in a remarkable moment just about a year ago, I was riding in a car with Lynn Fundingsland, my predecessor from this position, and we began a conversation about the high-rise. And I'll tell you only this, I was in a situation where I couldn't look out to the horizon because I just had retinal detachment surgery, and Lynn was driving me back from the cities. And so I was focused, I had to keep a bubble in the back of my eye, and I was focused on keeping that bubble in the center of my eye, so I couldn't really look around, so I was listening very carefully to what my friend Lynn was saying. And he said, he offered me the opportunity that provided me one realization. And the realization was Fargo Housing Authority has always focused on its people. If we continue to do that, the development opportunities will reveal themselves. And that began the process in earnest of preparing an application under Section 18 of an earlier Housing Act to begin to dispose of the property, and dispose of, and there's an option to demolish, and I can address that and will address that in just a second. But the opportunity to dispose of the property is simply the legal mechanism to move the property to some other use, some other legal entity, to begin the investigation of what to do next. So disposing is simply the technical way that, should HUD grant a pending application that we have since submitted. And I'm deeply appreciative to Christine and Velma for the earlier conversation we had and for all of their efforts throughout this, and with Evelyn's support and the rest of the staff, really throughout the country, in terms of what's necessary to review those applications. But it was in that moment of realization that I simply said, the development aspect of this project will ultimately unfold. And that's why, for me, when I've only been in this position a year and a half, with the support of my board, this is, and I'm sure they feel the same way, an incredibly meaningful moment, because they've been waiting a long time to come to a conclusion of, this is the moment. This is the moment where we can begin to do something. And I know that the rest of my staff is equally excited about it. What form that takes as a development project is not known. It hasn't been determined. It will only be determined should we be able to begin the opportunities to explore the options with friends like EPIC, like Enclave, like BSI, like Roars, like everybody else who might have good ideas to determine what is the highest and best use of that property. But my focus is going to continue to be, and I know my board's is to continue to focus on the people, because they are the folks who desperately have the need of affordable opportunities in downtown Fargo, and that's what that 2 acres represents. Whether there's a building there or that like that building, whether there's a 22-story high-rise that's 50 years old that's gone through a rehabilitation process, and there are obviously tools that are available to us. As I see my friend Evelyn nod, because the Rental Assistance Administration would be an opportunity. Our project at Fargo New Horizons was an experiment, a successful one, to see what the opportunities provide through the Rental Assistance Demonstration, and it was a resounding success. Does that work in the high-rise? We're not sure. But those opportunities get to be explored subsequent to the hoped-for approval of the Section 18 disposition application. So what about the folks who are currently living there? Well, subsequent to what we hoped for is the approved application, we will then be able to apply for tenant protection vouchers to address the needs of the folks who are in there. The tenant protection vouchers are effectively the golden ticket that will allow them, through our assistance for relocation on a household-by-household basis, that relocation that will be customized to their needs, that will address the inevitable anxiety, that will help them find a new place to live, and then take that tenant protection voucher to find a new private landlord and a new place to live, where we can then provide some assistance to them to get them relocated, to get them moved, to get them settled, and possibly even to assist them in the difficult area, which is things like their security deposit. And we have the funding set aside to do that. So should we be granted those tenant protection vouchers on a 1-for-1 match for the units that are currently represented in the high-rise of 247, we've addressed the replacement needs and dispersed that congested model from the late 1960s of building a big building and then having everybody live in it and make sure that they're taken care of. And we then disperse them throughout the community so that there is no longer a stigma attached to folks living in public housing. Somebody who has a tenant protection voucher or is otherwise being provided some assistance, from my perspective, and I know there's other people in this room who share this, should suffer no stigma for that. They should suffer nothing other than all of the full benefits that everybody else is entitled to in terms of living within this community. So as the folks in the high-rise get relocated, and we begin to investigate what are the options for the highest and best use of that property, it's going to come with some conditions. Because if the Section 18 disposition application is approved, it will come with the requirement. The HUD speak is commensurate public benefit, and it's the appropriate 3 words to demonstrate what's necessary for our friends at HUD to even consider disposing of a public housing entity that is theirs, that we administer and steward on their behalf, and that as they seek to reposition those assets throughout the nation, they need to know, in fairness, if we're going to allow you to do this, how are you going to continue to help folks? Because as much as big federal bureaucracies are often seen as weighty behemoths, that has not been my experience with our friends at HUD. They consistently return to the folks and the people and their needs, and they know that we on the ground at Fargo Housing are equally committed to that. So the commensurate public benefit that would be tied to the future reuse of the property would involve no less than, and this is my specific request within the application, no less than 110 units of affordable housing, new affordable housing, for folks to be able to access the resources and the opportunities that come with downtown living. And the second thing would be that any financing that should accrue, whether by ground lease or any other potential opportunities, might be sale, we don't know, of the property, that those funds will also be used to the future benefit of developing affordable housing in the city of Fargo or to support the voucher activities, the two critical issues that our friends at HUD are focused on, because they tie to how to improve the lives of others. So I'm happy to address questions. I hope that gives you the appropriate overview on what that property looks like and where it's headed, because where we're currently in this snapshot of a moment is we are hopeful that the Section 18 disposition application will be approved. We have a plan forward, bless you. We have a plan forward to address the needs of the folks who are living there through the tenant protection vouchers. And then we have a commensurate public benefit tied to the future reuse of that property for no less than 110 units of new affordable housing opportunity, probably through project basing vouchers to assist the development of that property. But we do not know the answers in terms of what that looks like and what shape that takes and whether it involves the old building or new buildings. We won't know that until we have the opportunity to have this property disposed of to a new legal entity so that we can begin the partnerships and develop the use agreements to then see what those opportunities might look like. Thanks very much. And I am passing the baton to, I think Todd's taking the lead?
Yes, sir.
Okay, to Todd Burning from Epic Companies. And they have lots more slides than I have because I'm relying on the city. So thanks very, very much.
Yeah, good morning. We're going to start with Brian Berg. He's going to go through some slides, and it'll give some more details of the site and you know, break it apart a little bit by ownership. And we'll update you where we are today, and then we'll talk a little bit about where we could be tomorrow.
Thanks, Todd. So what I'm going to do is just really briefly go through where we are today with the Gateway piece of property that Epic has, and then talk a little bit about maybe a little bit of a vision of what could happen with some of the synergies that are out there between these other two sites and that Gateway site. First of all, I just want to say thanks to all of you that traveled here to come for this meeting. It's been really a very energizing and exciting discussion, and hearing about the Opportunity Zone yesterday and the discussion that we had last night related to these projects, and just the you know, it's great to see our federal partners working with the city folks that we work with on a daily basis, and coming together to try and solve problems. That's really what this is all about. So we're really excited about the opportunity to be here at the table with you. So the first slide that we have here is basically some aerial photographs of the property that maybe show a little bit more of the character of the property and the context, the proximity to the river. You can see the piece of property that the city owns on the bottom left there. By the roundabout. The buildable piece is the piece that Amy just circled with her mouse there, and you can see the dike that comes through there, and the lift station that's on the corner, and some of the infrastructure pieces that are part of the flood protection for the downtown area. So, and then you can also obviously see the high rise there, and you can see the Gateway property and how it really is, as the drone was hovering over Maine and the connection to Moorhead here, it really is a prime entry point into the city of Fargo. And so, whatever happens there, I think really needs to honor that. It needs to be something that really says to people, you've arrived. This is the gateway to the Fargo-Moorhead area. Coming from the east. So the next slide is a more recent picture that shows the winter condition there, and again kind of what's going on, and shows a little bit more of the area to the south, which is the trailhead or part of the trail system along the river corridor that reaches south into the Lindenwood area, and you can see the dam there that's back behind the dike, and really as we've been visioning for what could happen on this site, we've been talking a lot about connectivity and about connectivity to the city, infrastructure that's already in place, connectivity to the parkway that's along the river and the greenway that exists, and that's some really exciting opportunities. So the next slide shows just an aerial photograph, and if you bounce to the next one there, Amy, you can see the property lines kind of divided up there, and the next slide has the Gateway property highlighted, and you can see the Gateway North development there, which will be the first phase starting this spring. The entire Gateway site is about 3.5 acres, so just over 3.5 acres. We're really excited about the potential for what could happen on that site. But as we've been talking with the planning office and with folks at the city and with Matthew and his people at Fargo Housing, we've really become energized with the potential for what could happen as this site is developed potentially further to the east and to the south. So the next slide shows that footprint of the Gateway North first building, again, that will be starting construction on this spring. That building will include underground parking, commercial space on the first floor, and 4 stories of apartment living above that. The top 2 floors are mostly 2-story units that will have some loft feeling in them. But there are some much smaller units in there that are sort of entry level apartments that are intended to be for maybe people that are starting out, people that are looking to live in the downtown area, but not maybe with some of the downtown price that comes with the downtown area sometimes. And so we're really excited about the breadth of types of units that we're going to have in this first project, and we would continue that with a potential second project on the south lot there. As Todd mentioned yesterday, if you go to the next slide, Amy, first of all here, these are some images that were put out publicly here about a month and a half, 2 months ago, showing just a really quick early concept rendering of the first building, the north building that fronts Main Avenue, you can see how it really is. What we're trying to do is create, working with Confluence on this, formerly Land Elements, working with Confluence on this project. We've been talking a lot about that connectivity piece, as I mentioned earlier, and about what that might look like. And so this is just the first kind of stake in the ground here. Todd's going to talk about the financial side of the project a little bit, and about the importance of starting things off right here with this first building. This is that first component of the project, but the idea of having this connectivity to the river corridor and providing green space within the development that connects to that corridor, I think is something that we're really excited about, and we've got some great, very early concepts that we've been just starting to work on with Confluence here that would encompass the current Gateway site and potentially the adjacent properties as well. Looking what that might look like. So Amy, if you could go to the next slide. The Gateway South building, this is, as Todd mentioned yesterday, this is not the preferred option. This is an option that certainly will work, and if we aren't able to collaborate with the adjacent properties, then something like this is probably the direction that we would end up going. But the Gateway South project is a multi-story high-rise, potentially 8 stories, that would include, again, all levels of housing, up to and including luxury condominiums that would be on the upper floors. And so we're trying to provide as a real continuum of housing here that expands from entry level to very very nice condos that would be on upper floors with tremendous views of the river corridor and that sort of thing. Both of these buildings would have below-grade parking. Both of them would have commercial space on the main floor, so they're both kind of a mixed-use model. And you can see right now the concept on the north building, certainly we would have the entry into that parking on the west end there, and then on the south building it would potentially be on the west end as well. The next slide shows just a very quick concept rendering, SketchUp rendering, showing the potential built-out Gateway site as a standalone site. You can see the green property to the west there, and the blue property to the south being the city lot, and obviously the Fargo Housing Authority property to the south. And then there's one more image showing the other direction, showing what that might look like. And as we kind of start talking about how potentially we could partner with potentially with Fargo Housing and with the city, we've started the discussion of what that might look like. And this I mentioned last night when we were talking around dinner that this is kind of a classic case of, this would be a great project as a standalone project, but this is kind of a classic case of the whole being potentially much greater than the sum of the parts. And so we're really excited about the potential that could come with the adjacent properties. And we've started that conversation with Confluence. We've had very early conversations with the city and with Fargo Housing, with Matthew and his group about what that might look like. And so the next slide shows kind of the encompassing the entire block there, with the exception of the professional building and the gas station, but encompassing that entire east and central part of the block, and shows that city of Fargo property, and really the buildable area there is by the time you look at the setbacks off of the earth dike and the lift station and everything else that's going on there, there's some restrictions there that reduce the size of that buildable area, and then the Fargo Housing Authority site. And as I mentioned earlier, Epic's property is about 3.5 acres, and the City of Fargo and Fargo Housing Authority properties are about the same size, just a little bit larger than that combined. So there's a lot of potential here with 7 acres to do something that's really spectacular at the entry to the Fargo Main Street corridor, and we're really excited to be a part of that. And I guess with that, I'll maybe hand it off to Todd and let him talk a little bit about the finance side of the project.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Nice job. The opportunity zone, that's what we talked about yesterday. And, we were fortunate enough to acquire this site, and then on top of that, raise the equity that we need to not only do the Gateway North, but the other building, which is really our option. I call it option 4, I think is what I called it yesterday. I think 1, 2, and 3 are much better, but the clock's ticking for us a little bit. We've raised a bunch of capital for Opportunity Zone project here in downtown Fargo, and really what I want to do is what we've done before. How do we integrate these properties and really do what's best for the Fargo Housing Authority? We've moved people. This would be our 4th HUD project, and we had to move families before, and it's not easy. The human side takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, and what we may think is an everyday thought might not be for them. And so we need to work through that process potentially, and really look at whether it's 5.5 acres with the Fargo Housing Authority, or it's a total of 7, 8 acres combined. What we can do financially, I think there's a lot of potential, as we talked yesterday and we talked last night, and as we all know, different government agencies and investors get together and can solve a lot of problems really quick. And so, my goal is to really understand, it has to be an entry into the community type project with some stature and a 100-year thought process. I think it has to program into the community from lots of different aspects, from public transportation to integrating with the Park District and what they're doing in the city and the Greenway, et cetera. And just amenities that complement what Block 9's doing, what Park District's doing, et cetera, and create a quality of life, whether you have a $400,000 condo or a single 1-bedroom affordable living. It's, everybody should be the same. You should drive by and everything's equal. And I think that's really important. And we're demonstrating that with HUD and a project in Minot, that it's going to be one of the nicest affordable housing projects in the state, if not the nicest. And it's taken a couple of years to get there. It's patience, it's understanding from the city, it's understanding from the government, and from an investment standpoint of how this all fits together and how we can take care of some of those things. So that's where we're looking at. I can't stress enough, I'm kind of in a state of flux, and you know, when I called Joel Mansky about the Fargo Housing Authority, and he said, just hang on, let's talk. The stars may align, and we could create a really good gateway into the community. We could create something that Matthew Pike obviously bleeds about it, passionate about it, and so am I. If you look at our track record of what we're doing in downtown West Fargo, what we're doing in Minot, you know, it's about people. It really is. And you know, we tell our investors that we're not going to hit home runs. It's going to be singles and doubles. And you know, we approach things a little different. So I hope, you know, this is the beginning. You know, we're going to go tour the site, and we'll have lunch at our favorite frying pan in our strip mall that's about ready to fall apart. Really, they were ready to spend quite a bit of money to renovate that, and they put the brakes on, and we're working through the dynamics of moving them into the new building and moving on. That's a human side too. You know, it's a long-term business. You know, my kids are 24, and I used to take them there with my grandparents for breakfast. And that's when they were good. But anyway, it's
Sorry,
yeah,
Todd, the food were good, or your children were good? I think we need some clarification.
No clarification. Oh boy. Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and so yeah, that's where we'll end up today. And I'm excited for it, but I'm excited for tomorrow. You know, it's been great that you guys have been here and can see it firsthand, and see the community working together. And any questions, let me know, whether it's today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. Very open book.
So we'll just have a thank you so much, Brian, Todd, and Matthew. Jim just has a few kind of wrap-up comments on Mid-America Steel site as we move the mouse, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A and discussion, especially to hear from our invited guests here today on some of their feedback and touch points.
Just want to comment on a few of the Mid-America Steel site characteristics. I've walked about 6 different development groups through here. They're all, I think, a little bit intrigued with the development possibilities and a little bit afraid of all the unknowns and uncertainties here and the challenges. You know, this particular site, as far as what is like, we've got some existing buildings on here. You know, one of the questions asked the developers, you know, this building actually used to be where they would store trolley cars. It's quite old, and some of the doors you can kind of still see from the interior. And so does this have enough character to save, or do we just, you know, start all over and you know, clear the site? So that's one of the questions that has come up. We've been fortunate to have a brownfield assessment grant. We've done a phase 1, phase 2 asbestos survey. We have some test wells identified that there's some petroleum issues on the site as well as asbestos. And so those are some things that we're looking at submitting a grant to EPA for, you know, some brownfield cleanup, at least to help us with that. Access to the site from Main Avenue, there's no way to get to this site from Main Avenue. There's, you've got a bridge here and a relatively steep elevation change. You have a bridge that used to be both a car rail line here and one site here, so there's limited access here. You have flooding issues. The floodplain runs through at about this point. Access issues also, I mentioned there's a rail line here. There's an at-grade crossing, an underground crossing. So the development potential of the south side is can be quite limited. Again, major rail lines going through here, probably 80 trains a day, something like that. Pretty busy line. Utilities on NP Avenue, these are all quite old. probably undersized, so there's going to need to be utility reconstruction before the site can be developed. And then some of our floodplain rules, depending on how they're applied, this is the area with the greatest potential of anywhere from 2 to 5 acres, depending on how we apply our flood rules. But the views from the river here are very good. You're close to the downtown, so this is the area that has the highest potential for redevelopment. And so we're going to be working on that over the next 2 years, trying to get this site in a position where we can do an RFP and see what kind of development potential there is. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. So that concludes our formal portion of the day. And I guess at this point, I'd like to pass it over to Evelyn if there's any comments that HUD would like to kick off with, and maybe share the table with the housing board members and other folks here. So just open dialogue.
Sure, thank you. I just, I'm going to pass it over to the experts over here, but I just want to say that I think, when we first started talking about this project, we saw the possibilities, and only because I think Matthew and Jill and his team at the Housing Authority care so much about the tenants. So it really is, it comes back to that, the process to move, which I think others have acknowledged. That's the hard part, and I think we have a great team at the Housing Authority who will focus on making sure that the tenants are protected and that they end up in a good place, good community to live. And so that's the baseline for why we even have approached this, and why we all wanted to come here today to talk about what could happen in this opportunity zone. I'll pass it over to Velma and Christine, who are the experts, but this also just aligns with some of our HUD priorities, the repositioning of public housing, protecting tenants, and then the revitalization of communities. And I just saw Joel Mansky walk in because I'm not quite sure why he's not sitting at the table. He's the one who brought us all here together, so I would love for him to be up here and part of the conversation. I'm his boss, so I think people are going to blame me for not having him here. But I've actually asked him several times to come up and
She keeps texting me.
So thank you, Joel.
So this was conceived, this discussion yesterday and today was conceived in a discussion we had with Jim and Nicole back in October, and Evelyn was in town at the same time, and the excitement in the city's perspective was enormous. The potentials of this discussion are significant, and they're not just significant today, they're intergenerationally significant to the city of Fargo, and the stabilization of tax base and affordable housing and commercial development and the public-private partnership, and the excitement's real. And met with Bruce, and Bruce, shares this passion for potential, and how if we do this right, and we get one chance to do this right with these public assets, and that's really kind of driving the conversation, which is a bit of an anomaly in our affordable housing world, is these two public assets right now are a determinant, and the dissemination of those assets are public. They'll be done through an RFP via the city, they'll be done through the Housing Authority, they'll request proposals, and someone will determine what's the best use and collaborative use of these resources. But I'm excited, and I'm more excited that our team is excited. And it's pretty uncommon. Yesterday we had the RA from EDA, we have the SBA team here, Patrick, we're happy you're here from Denver, from EPA, although everybody's afraid of the EPA, but we're happy you're here. Because I think you lend a solution to a problem, right? We've got two brownfield that we're focused on here in Fargo. So, and Velma and Christine, Mark, on a finance perspective from HUD, it's pretty unusual that we can have a focus on Fargo, and that's kind of the term I've been using since October. This is a focus on Fargo. And here we are. It seems like time has passed quickly, and Nicole and her staff have done a wonderful job of pulling this together, Jim, that I hope we leave here today with a new excitement and focus and vision for potentials here in Fargo. Vilma, have you had a chance to kind of provide an update on the application for Section 18 and the disposition and the mechanics therein for public awareness?
I have not, and I will gladly do that. Thank you, Joel. Before I do that, I just want to say that I found Matthew's comments very touching and very accurate. And Jill, you've been the heart of all of this, so your comments as well at the beginning, and really appreciate both of you and your extreme, not only devotion and passion to this effort, but bringing us together collaboratively to work through this process and the application. I know Christine has worked very hard from our team as well as some others on the staff, but it's really coming together. I just want you to know that we are this close to approval. We had a little sidebar this morning to get some clarity on a couple of things, move a couple of things on a form. That's pretty much where we are. I'll make another phone call this afternoon and see if we can get us even closer. But the SAC application is likely to be approved. It's not yet, so that's taken a lot of effort. And once that happens, then this is real. So we're super excited. Thank you and your team for everything that you've done. Joel, this is amazing. Thanks for yeah, it really is. It feels so good. I'm fighting tears in this eye, and it's just very touching. But I'm super excited about this effort, this collaboration. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your support and everything that you're doing here, but I just can't wait to see what happens with the residents and hearing about your relocation and down payment assistance, and that personalized touch is super special, and it means a lot to us at HUD to know that that's going to happen as well. Christine, do you want to add anything?
I had the privilege of working with Fargo on their application and sorting out some of the details. I think what really drew me to this particular case was that, as I mentioned during dinner last night, I started in affordable housing after getting my master's in business with a relocation project. So I worked from the ground up and really worked with tenants one-on-one. And I saw the passion and the care that Fargo has for its community and its people, and that is very meaningful. Now, clearly I'm with HUD, and I have to make sure that all the information aligns in a transaction table, but not without the passion that goes along with it. So I appreciate you, Fargo Housing Authority, and the community of Fargo, and taking pains to make sure the community is well served. It is a privilege to be here.
Thank you. So we've always had an impossible dream to take care of this issue in our community, and time is always of essence. So you get the opportunity zones and people want to push. Question always with the federal government is time, is how long does it take to make all these things happen? So I don't want to get back too excited, but is there, will these things happen over a matter of time? And it seems like the government is trying to break through those time barriers and make things move faster. But I know we're always at, 1 or 2 million short most of the time on a lot of different things that we've tried in the past for this solution. So I'm very excited to hear that we can move forward, and we have a developer that wants to move things forward, and we have options that we didn't have before. And just curious, is that when we get those tweaks done, then does somebody write a check somewhere, or how does this work?
Yeah, Evelyn comes with a big check.
That's backed by Velma, actually, so. Yeah, actually, once that approval happens, then the next step would be for the Housing Authority to apply for tenant protection vouchers. And those are many checks, 200 and some checks that residents will have to sustain affordable housing in the community. And that's good for the community too. So everybody wins.
Mayor, I think it's important to point out too that in the Housing Authority's affordable housing inventory and perspective of the outcome of this, or the potential outcome,
is that not only were the 247 residents in the high-rise be protected with tenant protection vouchers that gives them the freedom to select their own apartment in the private sector, and as part of the relocation strategy with the Housing Authority, but the covenant of reuse of the real estate has the potential to add 110 units of new affordable housing to the inventory in Fargo. In fact, I can't speak for Matthew, but I'm sure it's going to be somewhat of a mandate that those new affordable housing components be a part of the strategy. And so this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity from a HUD resource perspective to see a net gain of 110 units of affordable housing at the same time as solving the challenge of what to do with the high-rise.
So in the last few minutes that we have here before we join the bus, I wanted to just make sure the regional administrator, Patrick Davis, has an opportunity to speak if you have any comments as he's taking notes. and if you, to kind of bring it back to include the environmental component as well.
So I'm anxious to see the site, particularly the Sioux Steel site. I've learned some things today. I always learn some things when I hear presentations about former steel sites. I didn't realize there was petroleum underground. Wondered if there was a plume. It's adjacent to a river, so would have some concerns there. And I also have some questions about what it would take to abate the asbestos in the housing unit and take the pipes out and repurpose it for housing. I mean, take it down to its guts and keep it there, if that was an option. So those are my thoughts, and I'm anxious to see the tour. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other closing comments? We have a few questions, or few minutes. Maybe logistics, give everybody a chance to stretch their legs and hit the restrooms if need be. There is a bus out front, and maybe if we could get on the bus by 10:45. So if we want to have a few more Q&A questions here and then wrap up and head on out. And any closing comments from anybody? Questions? Any of the private developers or Dan have any comments?
Randy, you want to say anything about downtown? How much it's grown? All the things help you?
All these years?
Yes. You've been around a while, I think, since St. Ansgar.
You know, I just look young. But no, you know, we've been in downtown Fargo for, my partner and I, Warren, my business partner, you know, with the old Broadway since, the old Broadway, I think, opened in 1975. At that time, I was at the Biltmore as their accountant. And it was shortly after that that I actually got started in business. You know, so we've been down and we've seen a lot, just a tremendous amount of infill. You know, we at one point, right at the end before the Renaissance Zone got started in the grants, you know, for the storefront grants began, we were ready to leave. You know, it's just nothing was going on, so we're excited we stayed. We recently moved one of our businesses out that started in a back room with 3 employees, and then moved to the Woolworth building on the end, and then my brother's dental laboratory, brother and brother-in-law dental laboratory bought the building from us, and they're in there now, Precision Dental, and we moved back over to the Herbst building. And we thought when we developed 55,000 square feet in the Herbst building with our printing company, CI Apparel, you know, that would be enough. Well, we recently moved out and to the Gander Mountain building. We're just completing that, so we've moved out of the downtown area. I think they got tired of our trucks anyway. We had some big 53-footers backing into the alleys and stopping traffic on NP, and so we've recently moved into 75,000 square feet, and just completing that now, and look to even to expand that in the future. We have enough acreage there to actually double again where we're at today. So we're excited to move out, but we're also equally excited to see how and what we might do with the development of the properties that we own in the downtown area along NP Avenue. So we've seen a lot, and we've watched Kilbourne Group, and we watch and we watch and we wait and we wait. And I kind of like to be the last one with a lot of property, and so you can actually see what was developed, how does it work, how will it fit in with what we do. And we're quite excited to hopefully in the next month announce, what our plans are for our property. So we've been working on it for about a year since we decided to move. So we're quite excited about having them over there and having 2 loading docks and 6 UPS docks when we only had 1 before. So it was it's quite a change for us. But we're excited, and all the changes, even having NDSU down there and all the housing, it really makes us think too about the development of a new business plan and a new how we're going to run business in the next 20 years and what we might do with our restaurants, with our properties. So quite exciting. And again, I hope to, in the next month announce something about the development of our property.
So he's been part of a lot of our development downtown, but one of the things that we see is we need about 5,000 people downtown now to a lot of different areas, and we are going to need affordable housing for that to happen and to have people move into the community. So we've seen great growth. Joel Paulson told me the other day on the diversion, we might need 15,000 workers in our community. So that's a lot of people to absorb over 5 years. So we're really excited about this project. So happy you came to town to help us sort this out. I couldn't talk anybody into the nunneries, but other than that, it's been a good experience. We've had great discussions, and it's really good when we can have federal, state, and locals work together on something that makes a huge impact for our community. And Matt will tell you this has been his headache since he's gotten here, and he continues to struggle with Joel to try to solve this, and we're closer to this than we've ever been. So thank you. We'll go over and see the sites. Nicole?
Yep, so the bus is just out front, and those that don't want to stay for lunch can still stay on the bus, and because the bus will bring you right back here. And then if you want to stay for lunch at Frying Pan, you're welcome to stay there, and then the bus will come back and bring us back. So if that makes any sense.
It's good to see you. Good.